laughing before I even got my boots off. Not the kind of laugh that means something's actually funny. The kind that means someone's performing for an audience. Sharp and bright, bouncing off the kitchen tile, carrying all the way to the front hallway, where I was still standing with grease under my fingernails from a long day at the shop. My name is Dale Pruitt. I'm 54 years old, and I've been fixing HVAC systems in and around Millhaven, Ohio. For going on 26 years, I own the business. 4 guys work for me. I know how things are supposed to run, and I know when something's off. That Tuesday night, something was off. I'd come in through the side door like always, thinking about whether there were any of those leftover pork chops in the fridge, and whether I had enough energy to shower before I fell asleep on the couch. My wife Connie had mentioned her friends were coming by, but the house sounded empty of guests. Just her voice, easy and loose, the way she only sounds when she's talking to people she's trying to impress. I moved toward the kitchen and stopped. She was on speaker. I could hear 2 other voices, women I recognized, her friends Gail and Patrice, the ones she did Sunday brunch with every other week, the ones who always had opinions about other people's marriages. I was reaching for the fridge handle when I heard Connie say it. Honestly, I just use the one thing. Works every single time. He folds like a lawn chair. Gail laughed. Patrice said something I couldn't catch, and then all 3 of them were going at it. I didn't move. My hand was still on the refrigerator handle, and the compressor was humming, and I was standing there in my work jacket, listening to my wife explain to her friends how she managed me. Like I was a vending machine she'd figured out. Like she'd cracked the code and was proud of it. I eased the door shut without making a sound, backed up against the counter, just out of sight of the doorway, and I listened. She didn't use my name. She didn't need to. The structure was clear enough. When I pushed back on something, she went cold. When I disagreed, she withheld. When I wanted to be close to her, that closeness became a bargaining chip she held, just out of reach, until I came around to her way of thinking. She talked about it the way you'd talk about a trick you learned for getting a dog to sit. Casual, satisfied, a little smug. I stood there for maybe 2 minutes. Felt like longer. Here's the thing about hearing something like that. Your brain doesn't go straight to anger. It goes straight to the filing cabinet. Starts pulling folders. The Friday 3 weeks ago, when she went completely silent for 2 days because I said I couldn't make a last-minute dinner reservation. The Sunday I suggested we pull back on spending, and she looked at me like I'd insulted her mother. The dozen times I'd reached for her and she'd given me a patient little smile and said maybe tomorrow, and tomorrow always had conditions attached. You don't think, I've been betrayed? You think, oh, that's why. I walked away from the doorway before she finished the story she was telling. Went upstairs slow and quiet, like a man who just remembered he left something in the bedroom. No stomping, no throat clearing, no confrontation scene. Not yet. Our bedroom was dark, except for the streetlight pushing a pale stripe across the wall. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at the dust on top of the dresser and thought about weight distribution. In my line of work, you think about systems. You think about load and balance, and what happens when one component carries more than it's built for. A compressor that's overworked doesn't announce itself. It just runs hotter and hotter until one day it quits and takes the whole unit with it. I'd been the overworked compressor in this marriage for a while. I just hadn't been willing to read the temperature gauge. I sat in the dark for a long time. Downstairs, the laughter crested a couple more times, then died down. I heard the back door open and close. Connie stepping outside for some privacy, apparently, which was a funny thing to want after broadcasting your strategy on speakerphone in her own kitchen. I picked up my phone and texted my buddy Ray back about the Saturday hike he'd been asking me to join for 3 weeks. 2 letters. In. I'd been putting it off because I kept leaving the weekends open, on the chance that Connie would decide we were in a good stretch, and she'd want to do something. I'd been living on standby, waiting for a signal that never came on my terms. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling fan. My dad used to take me out on the back roads outside Findlay when I was 16, and the roads were icy, and he'd say the same thing every time I overcorrected into a skid. Don't fight it, Dale. Point where you want to go and hold it steady. He said it so many times it became automatic. I could hear his voice saying it now. Point where you want to go. Hold it steady. Connie came upstairs later smelling like the expensive shampoo she ordered online with some influencer's discount code. She set her phone face down on the nightstand. Always face down. I'd noticed that for months without thinking about it, and climbed into bed without a word. Didn't reach for me, didn't ask how my day was. Just settled in and reached for her book. Used to bother me. That night it just felt like information. I didn't sleep much. I lay there in the dark with the furnace cycling on and off and the occasional car going past outside, and I built a list in my head. Small things, practical things. Gym 3 mornings a week. The hike Saturday with Ray. Call my brother Hank, who I hadn't talked to in 6 weeks because I kept forgetting. Schedule the physical I'd pushed back twice. Get the oil changed in the truck. Buy new work boots. The left one was starting to separate at the toe. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that required a speech or a confrontation or a lawyer. Just the small machinery of a life, reclaimed one piece at a time. Around 2 in the morning, Connie turned over and pulled the blanket tighter and made a small sound in her sleep. I watched the streetlights stripe on the wall and thought about what my dad said. Point where you want to go. I knew where I wanted to go. By morning, I had a plan. Not a revenge plan, nothing so cinematic. Just a decision to stop being steered by something I hadn't agreed to. The lever she was so proud of would stop working the second I stopped reaching for it. You don't dismantle a manipulation by confronting it loudly. You dismantle it by removing your participation. Simple as that. Quiet as that. I went downstairs, poured coffee, and set my running shoes by the front door. When Connie came down in her robe and asked if I wanted to go look at area rugs with her and Gail that afternoon, I told her I had plans. She looked at me the way you look at a GPS that's suddenly routing you somewhere unexpected. What plans? Hike with Ray. Early start, I'll be out most of the day. A pause, small, but I caught it. We were going to do the rug thing. I mentioned it. You did. Hope you find a good one. I snapped the lid on my travel mug. Her smile had a little stutter in it, just a flicker. She recovered fast, but I'd seen it. That was the first morning of a different kind of life. The week that followed was like watching a machine try to run without the part it was designed around. Connie ran through her usual repertoire, and I watched it the way you watch a familiar process from a different angle. First came the quiet removal. After I asked her to check with me before booking our entire weekend to her friend's brunch crawl, she went polite and distant, answered questions with single words, moved through the house like I was furniture she was working around. A year ago, that would have sent me straight into repair mode, apologizing for things I hadn't done wrong, trying to diagnose what I'd broken so I could fix it. That week, I did my emails, went to the gym, and slept fine. The silence didn't feel like punishment anymore. It felt like weather. You bring a jacket or you don't. The clouds don't care either way. Then came the pressure test on Tuesday. A client's commercial unit had thrown an error code during a scheduled automation update, and I stayed late to walk my guy Terrence through the reset sequence over the phone. I texted Connie that I'd be late and to start dinner without me. When I got home, she had takeout containers lined up on the counter like evidence at a crime scene. We were supposed to go to Megan's tonight, she said, not looking at me. You said you'd be home by 7. I said I'd try. We had a system down. I got it sorted. She turned and gave me the smile. The one that means you just confess to something. Right. Work comes first. Tonight it did, I said, keeping my voice even. Tomorrow might be different. She took her food to the couch and turned the TV up about 3 notches past comfortable. I ate at the counter and read through the service notes for the next morning's call. Thursday brought the leverage move, dressed up as something practical. The HOA had been after us about the oak tree out front, and I'd booked a crew for Saturday morning. Connie wanted to push it to the following week because Patrice was coming over to take photos for some social media project and a ladder in the yard would ruin the aesthetic. I already scheduled it, I said. They had an opening. She tilted her head and smiled. That particular smile. We'll see how much you miss me tonight. Said it almost playful, like a parent threatening to take away dessert. Okay, I said, and rinsed my coffee mug. She hadn't expected okay. The game needs resistance to function. You push, the other person pushes back. And in that friction, you find your leverage. Without the pushback, she was left holding a handle, attached to nothing. She stood there for a second, recalibrating, then went upstairs early. I finished a job estimate, set my alarm, and slept fine. Saturday morning, while the tree crew was unloading their equipment, Connie appeared on the back porch in the robe that used to be a guaranteed redirect. She was holding a mug, and she had that soft morning voice going, "What do you want for breakfast? I was thinking omelets." "I'm good. They're starting in about 10 minutes. She looked at the crew, looked at me. Her face didn't crack. She's too practiced for that. But you could see the recalculation happening behind her eyes. She tried another angle, mentioned an art fair downtown she'd seen on Instagram. "Can't today. Cars going in at 1, then I've got a run planned." "You've been making a lot of plans lately," she said, and there was something in her voice that was trying to sound casual and wasn't quite making it. "I have," I agreed, and went to talk to the crew foreman about the section near the fence. That afternoon, she tried the concerned wife routine. I found her folding laundry in the bedroom, laundry she never folded historically. And she looked up with that particular expression, head tilted, voice soft. "You've been really distant lately. Is everything okay? Is it work?" "Everything's organized," I said. "Work's fine. I'm just catching up on things I let slide." "What things?" "Sleep, cardio, the truck, lunch with Hank." I paused. "Normal stuff." She heard the subtext. Her jaw tightened just slightly, then released into a shrug that wanted to look relaxed. "Okay, I just want to make sure you're all right." "I appreciate that." I went back downstairs. Sunday morning, I decided to say the thing directly. Once, clean. No debate attached to it, no invitation for a 3-hour back and forth. We were both making coffee, doing that parallel kitchen dance that couples do, and I kept my eyes on my mug. I'm going to say something, and I'm not looking for an argument about it. She looked up. "When you pull back to move me in a direction, it doesn't make me want to come toward you. It makes the whole thing feel like a transaction. I'm not participating in that anymore." The silence that followed was the kind that has weight to it. "I don't do that," she said. "I'm not asking you to agree. I'm telling you how it lands." She laughed, that practiced, light sound, the one that means you're being ridiculous. "You're being dramatic. I'm being specific." She took her coffee to the living room. I took mine to the garage and cleaned the workbench and put air in all 4 tires on the truck. It's remarkable how many small tasks a man lets pile up while he's busy waiting for permission to live inside his own house. The following week, she invented an audience whenever I held my line. She'd narrate me to Gail and Patrice on the phone while I was in the next room. Voice pitched just loud enough to carry. "He's on this whole independence thing lately. I don't know." The first time I heard it, I almost laughed. Independence from what exactly? My own chronic overaccommodation? I put on my shoes and walked a mile before dinner. The air was cold enough to bite the inside of my nose. It felt honest. Midweek, she came at it from the concern angle. Sat across from me at the kitchen table, with her hands wrapped around a mug and her head tilted at that specific angle. "You seem unhappy. Is it me? Is it something I did?" "I'm not unhappy," I said. "I'm clear. Those are different things." "Clear about what?" "What I will and won't do. I'll listen. I'll compromise when it's actually mutual. I won't respond to tests." The word tests landed somewhere it wasn't supposed to. Her eyelids did a small thing, a flinch she covered fast. "You're imagining things," she said. "Maybe," and I said, and went upstairs to call Hank about the fishing cabin near Kelly's Island we'd been talking about for 3 years. I booked it while we were on the phone, 2 nights in April. Done. The old script would have had me circling back after a conversation like that. Hand on her shoulder, soft voice. "Hey, how do we reset?" That script stayed in the drawer. I still did the normal things. Took out the trash, replaced the furnace filter, fixed the cabinet hinge in the bathroom that had been loose for 2 months. I was refusing to be steered by scarcity. She kept trying to sell me a drought, and I'd started carrying my own water. The following Saturday, she arranged a double date with a couple we knew, the Fenwicks, who communicated exclusively through competitive little digs, dressed up as jokes. I told her I'd pass and suggested she go without me. It'll look weird, she said, and to who? She didn't have a good answer for that. After she left, I grilled a steak, FaceTimed my nephew out in Colorado, and fell asleep reading without the television on. She came home late, made just enough noise in the hallway to let me know she was back, and got into bed without a word. The silence wasn't cold anymore. It was honest. The pressure shifted after that. Less confident, more tentative. She tried a direct appeal one evening, sitting on the edge of the couch with her hands in her lap, watching my face carefully. We should plan a weekend away, she said. Just us. Reset, you know? I'm not against it, I said. But a weekend away is just a coat of paint if what's underneath doesn't change. What does that mean? It means respect isn't something you turn on and off depending on whether you're getting what you want. And closeness isn't something you charge for. She stared at the coffee table. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite understanding, but something adjacent to it. The recognition that the lever she'd been reaching for wasn't there anymore. You could see her searching for the replacement part and coming up empty. I was steady. That was the whole thing. The man she'd been calibrating her moves against had stopped moving in the expected directions, and she didn't have a playbook for that. The decision to stop living like I was waiting for supply drops from a helicopter that might never come didn't arrive with any fanfare. It just clicked into place one night, quiet and final, like a seatbelt buckling. I started sleeping better almost immediately. That alone told me how much mental energy I'd been burning on the maze. When you stop running it, you realize how exhausted the running made you. I restructured my calendar without announcement. Lunch with Hank every Wednesday, non-negotiable. Friday morning coffee with my old buddy Pete from the warehouse. The guy who never says much but always remembers your kids' birthdays and what beer you drink. Saturday hikes stayed on the schedule. I stopped canceling them. The low-grade anxiety I used to feel when I confirmed those plans, that particular guilt about choosing something for myself, was just gone. Turns out anxiety looks a lot like permission you think you owe someone else. Connie tried nostalgia. She dug out a playlist from our early years and put it on in the kitchen. Set out the good whiskey next to a low glass. Brought up inside jokes that had been packed away for a long time. I laughed at the right moments. I thanked her for the pour. I went back to the estimate I was working on. She watched me from across the kitchen like she was waiting for a program to load. My phone became neutral territory. I stopped checking it every 20 minutes to see if the temperature had changed and I was allowed to be happy. Turned off most of the notifications, left the ones for work and family. When she texted a midday photo with "Miss me?" I replied, "In a meeting, call you after." When she sent a calendar invite titled Reset Weekend, I accepted it with a note. Let's talk about what we're actually resetting first. She ignored the note and started browsing cabin rentals. I let it sit. Silence isn't a weapon unless you're swinging it. Mine wasn't punishment. It was just the absence of a chase. When she went cool after a decision she didn't like, I stopped patching it. I let the house sound like itself. Dishwasher running, dryer tumbling, the Indians game low in the background. The house stopped feeling like a test site and started feeling like a place where I lived. Work sharpened up too. Without the constant background hum of domestic negotiation taking up bandwidth, I made a call I'd been avoiding for 3 weeks. Told a commercial client that our team wasn't going to absorb their rush fees because their purchasing manager couldn't plan 6 weeks ahead. Gave them the real timeline, the real cost, and 2 alternatives that would actually save them money if they were willing to schedule properly. The client's facilities manager called me back that afternoon and said he appreciated the straight talk. I shut my laptop at 5:40 and didn't open it again until morning. Connie escalated to proximity. Movie nights with a blanket half shared, her leg finding mine. My body had memory of what that used to mean, what it used to lead to. Memory can be retrained. I let the contact be what it was. Present, small. Not a contract. When she leaned in, I didn't lean away. I also didn't supply the rest of the scene she was scripting. She withdrew first, surprised that warmth could exist without a credit attached. A friend of ours, Bev, had been through a rough divorce the previous year and had mentioned something to me at a neighborhood thing a while back. She'd talked about this app called singletune.com. Said it was different from the usual stuff because before you ever saw anyone's photo, you had to answer a long series of questions about your values, what you'd been through, what you actually wanted from a relationship. She said the whole point was matching people on who they were, not what they looked like. I'd half listened at the time, filed it under things for other people. Standing in my kitchen that evening, watching Connie scroll her phone on the couch, I thought about what Bev had said, about knowing who you are before you try to connect with someone, about the questions being the point. I thought, I haven't known what I actually wanted in a long time. I've just been responding to whatever pressure was applied. That was worth sitting with. One night, she came home in a dress that made the room go quiet. Hair down, the lipstick she saves for specific occasions. She stood in the doorway and gave me a real smile. I think it was real anyway. I stood up, walked over, kissed her forehead, told her she looked incredible, and went back to chopping the bell peppers for dinner. She stood there for a moment. Then she drifted over and put her arms around my waist from behind, that familiar press against my back. I covered her hands with mine, breathed in once, felt the warmth. Then I stepped aside to drain the pasta. I could feel her confusion in the way her hands fell away. She'd expected the old response. Control had been replaced by contact, and contact alone wasn't enough to run the old program. Some nights I lay awake and thought about the math of it, not in an angry way, more like an engineer running diagnostics. How many plans had I canceled because I didn't want to upset the balance? How many things had I wanted to say and swallowed instead? How many times had I shaped myself around her mood, like water filling whatever container it's poured into? I stopped debriefing my day to someone who used the details as ammunition later. I kept the stories I actually wanted to share and gave the rest to people who asked because they were interested, not because they were gathering intelligence. I moved my running shoes from the closet to the front door. I replaced the dead porch light without consulting anyone about whether the color temperature matched the exterior palette. I scheduled a dental cleaning I'd put off for 8 months. You learn fast how much of your life you've been outsourcing to someone else's temperature when you start booking your own appointments again. One night late, she broke the pattern entirely. No setup, no angle. Just a straight question across the dark. Why don't you want me? I looked at the ceiling and found the only answer that wouldn't restart the old loop. I want a marriage that doesn't use closeness as a bargaining chip, I said. If that's not what we have, I'm not going to pretend it is. She didn't say anything. I didn't fill the silence. By the end of the month, my days had a shape that held. I could feel her testing for edges, less often because the map had changed on her. She was learning, slowly, maybe reluctantly, that I would be kind without being compliant. That I wasn't going to punish her, but I wasn't going to be managed either. I had become a man who could walk through his own house without asking permission to feel okay. That sounds like a small thing. It wasn't. Guilt arrived first, dressed in concern and carrying a mirror it wanted me to look into. She came to the doorway of the office one evening while I was logging mileage from the Saturday hike. Her voice was softer than usual, careful. I feel like you've shut me out, she said. I don't know how to reach you anymore. I swiveled my chair and looked at her. I let her finish. The way we were operating wasn't working, I said. Not for me. I adjusted. You make it sound like a business decision. It felt like survival. She frowned like I'd mispronounced a word she thought she knew. Can we just start over? Can we just go back to how things were? We can start honest, I said. That's different from going back. She left the room. 2 plates rattled in the sink with a little more force than necessary. When guilt didn't move me, she tried seduction as a reset button. New perfume, a whisper in the hallway, her leg against mine on the couch during a show I wasn't really watching. I kept contact as contact and nothing more. She tightened her grip, then released it when she understood I wasn't going to supply the rest of the scene. The confusion built in her. Not explosive, just pressurized. The lever worked when I chased. Without the chase, the lever was a handle attached to air. Blame came next. She told me my pulling back was cruel, that a real husband would fight to repair things, that I was being petty and cold. I'm being precise, I said. There's a difference. You're twisting everything. I'm not twisting anything. I'm just not running the old program. Arguments that need your heat can't survive without it. I stopped supplying fire. The kitchen felt bigger. Then came what I can only call the panic phase. A flurry of invitations, double dates, spontaneous quality time, a rushed idea for a weekend trip that was supposed to solve the problem it was designed to avoid. I heard the speed in all of it and slowed down on purpose. I'm open to time together, I said. Once we're on the same page about what we're actually doing here. What does that mean? What page? Respect not contingent on outcomes, closeness not used as currency. She stared past my shoulder. You're making this so much more complicated than it needs to be. Simple's easy when you're holding the remote, I said. Her friends noticed before her family did. Gail texted me directly one afternoon. Everything okay with you two? Connie seemed stressed. I replied that we were working through some things and left it there. Whatever story Connie had been feeding them ran out of road when I stopped providing the contradicting version that made them feel needed. The following week, at a birthday dinner for a mutual friend, one of them leaned across the table and told me I seemed different. Good, different, she said. Connie heard it from 2 seats away. I watched her hear it. That mattered. The first public slip happened at our neighbor Phil Garner's cookout. Connie told a small circle that I'd been distant lately and needed to relearn how to be present. She laughed when she said it, like it was an endearing quirk, something a themed date night could fix. Our neighbor, Marianne Tully, who has 3 teenagers and a nose for nonsense that could track a lie across 3 county lines, looked up from her potato salad and said very calmly, "Is that mutual?" The table went quiet in that particular suburban way, where everyone's suddenly very interested in their plates. I could have rescued Connie. I didn't. She changed the subject to the grill. Walking home afterward, she accused me of letting people think badly of her. I let them think for themselves, I said. That's not the same thing and you know it. Isn't it? She didn't answer. Her mother called that weekend. FaceTime, which meant she wanted to read my face. I told her we were recalibrating and that I was committed to a healthy outcome, together or separately. The phrasing slowed everyone down. Her mother, Ruth, doesn't like slow. She said marriage is about working through things. I agree, I said. Working isn't the same as bargaining, though. Later that night, Connie told me I'd embarrassed her by being dramatic with her mom. Clarity always looks dramatic to someone who's used to fog, I said. She went to bed without responding. The most revealing moment of the whole stretch came when Connie tried to reassert control with what she clearly thought was an overwhelming move. She booked a spa resort, a nice one, the kind with the Riverstone fireplaces and the menu that doesn't have prices, for a last-minute weekend. Texted me the confirmation with a winking emoji. No conversation, no checking my schedule, just a done deal presented as a gift. It used to be exactly the kind of grand gesture that would make me feel grateful and guilty at the same time. Grateful she'd done something nice, guilty for whatever I'd apparently done to make it necessary, and suddenly willing to let the underlying things slide because the surface looked good again. I replied, "Looks really nice. Let's go once we've dealt with what the trip would cover up." She didn't respond for 40 minutes. When she did, it was 3 words. Forget it then. I went to the gym, hit my lifts, ate breakfast, sent Hank the link to the fishing license portal. By afternoon, the slammed door had opened into a long text about how relationships require compromise. And she was trying, and I was being impossible. I wrote back, I agree that relationships require compromise. I won't compromise on being treated like a partner. She left it unread. 2 days later, she swung back to sweetness. The full production this time. Candles in the dining room, reservations at the Italian place on the 5th, that book's 3 weeks out. She was wearing the dress again. She looked beautiful. I told her so. At the table, she reached across and put her hand over mine. I want us to get back to us, she said. I miss us. Which us? I said, keeping my voice easy. She blinked. The one where affection is the signal for a negotiation, Or the one where affection is just how two people who respect each other actually live? She pulled her hand back slowly, like the table had delivered a small electric shock. The waiter appeared with water and a recitation of the specials. Timing has a sense of humor. I want to be clear about something. I wasn't using my new steadiness as a weapon. I wasn't withholding or punishing or keeping score. I still did everything my name was attached to. Paid the bills, fixed the gate latch, checked the tire pressure on Connie's car, answered when spoken to, didn't ghost my own house. I just stopped participating in the reenactments. That's what broke the game. The rules didn't change loudly. They just quietly expired. She'd reach for a piece and find it no longer fit the board. Other people started seeing it without me making any speeches. At her sister Donna's barbecue, somebody made a joke about wives keeping their husbands in line. The kind of joke that would have gotten an easy laugh the previous summer. It landed flat. My brother-in-law, Gary, asked me about a trail system near Cuyahoga Falls, and we spent 10 minutes talking elevation gain and whether the Eastern Loop was worth the extra mileage. Connie watched the whole conversation without finding a way into it. On the drive home, she said I'd become aloof. I've become congruent, I said. What does that even mean? It means what I say and what I do are the same thing now. She looked out the window. The panic phase peaked on a Wednesday night when she came to bed late and finally asked the question without any framing around it. What do you need from me, Dale? Just tell me. I kept my voice quiet. I need a partnership where neither of us is keeping score. I need you to want me because you want me, not because it's useful. And I need closeness to be something we share, not something you dispense when I've behaved. She stared at the ceiling for a long time. Then she nodded once, small. The way someone nods when they've just heard a diagnosis they suspected was coming. The next morning, she canceled brunch with Gail and stayed home. No announcement. She folded towels in the living room and asked how my call with the commercial client had gone. Real questions. Normal ones. After lunch, I could feel the old engine try to turn over in her. She almost reached for the lever out of pure habit, and then she stopped herself. Just stopped. Chose something else. That counted. More than she probably knew. A week of small resets followed. She initiated a walk without bringing her phone. She said yes to a plan I'd made instead of offering a conditional maybe. She touched my arm once in the kitchen for no reason, no agenda attached to it. Progress, not completion, but progress. Then one of her friends sent a message, the one who runs on drama the way a truck runs on diesel, inviting Connie to a night out. Come remind yourself who you are, the message said. Connie read it at the kitchen counter, then looked up at me. I might go, she said, testing. Go if you want. I hope it's fun. She studied my face for the old tell. The flinch, the slight tightening that meant I was bothered but pretending not to be. She didn't find it. She put the phone face down and didn't go. That evening, she sat on the back steps and watched the last light go out of the sky over the fence line. I came out and stood next to her. You want tea? She asked. Sure. It was almost nothing. It was also everything. The game hadn't ended because I'd won it. It had starved because I'd stopped feeding it. And in the quieter space left behind, we were both starting to see what was actually there. Or wasn't. A few nights later, she tried a half confession. Hands around a mug, eyes on the table. I thought that was just how you kept things from falling apart, she said. Use what works. Keep control of the situation. It's how people avoid being honest, I said. Easier to manage someone than to be real with them. She exhaled slowly, like she'd been holding that breath for a long time. I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, she said. I thought I was being smart. I know. That's worse, isn't it? A little, I said. We didn't solve anything on the back steps, but the performance lost its audience. And without applause, it couldn't hold itself upright. I went to bed that night knowing one thing clearly. I was reachable for truth. I was not reachable for games. The people around us were starting to see the difference. So was she. The next move would be her first real one in a long time. Or it would be the last move before the curtain came down. Either way, I'd sleep fine. We didn't end with a slammed door or a suitcase on the lawn. It came down to a Saturday morning, the kitchen table, 2 mugs, and a list I'd kept short enough to actually mean something. The light was coming in at that clean winter angle that makes everything look like it's been thought about. I'd slept well. Connie was already at the table when I came down, and she had the look of someone who'd rehearsed 5 different openings and scrapped all of them. I sat down and saved us both the warm-up. "I'm going to put some things on the table," I said. "Not as threats, just as facts." She nodded, hands around her mug, braced. First, partnership without performance. No more using closeness as a lever. If you're upset, say so. If you want something, ask for it. Don't price it. Second, mutual scheduling. My calendar is an open inventory for you to fill in. We decide together. Third, we deal with what's actually wrong, not the optics. No resort weekends to avoid the conversation. If this works, it works on a Tuesday night with takeout on the couch. Same as it does anywhere else. I stopped there. I had more. But more gives people places to hide. She stared into her mug for a long moment. "And if I can't do that?" she asked. Her voice was quiet, real. "Then we separate," I said, respectfully. "You have your life, I have mine. But I won't live inside a negotiation again." The old version of me would have rushed to soften that, offered an escape hatch before the silence could settle. I let it settle. It wasn't a threat. It was a description. She looked tired in a way that felt honest, not performed exhaustion, not strategic fatigue, just tired. "I don't know who taught me that was the way to do things," she said. "Maybe I thought if I controlled the situation, I wouldn't get hurt." "You're not small, Connie. You just kept reaching for the smallest tool." She looked out the window. A neighbor was walking a dog past the house. Normal Saturday, world going on. "I don't want to lose this," she said. "Then let's build something worth keeping." We sat there for a while longer. Then she went upstairs to shower and I cleaned the coffee rings off the table and booked myself into a Sunday boxing class I'd been eyeing for 2 months. Something just for me. Something that didn't require anyone's approval. The following week was quiet in a way that told the truth. We functioned like 2 adults with a shared address and a real question hanging between them. Careful, watchful, but not hostile. Wednesday night, she put her phone in a kitchen drawer and sat on the couch, without any of the usual armor. "Can we have a conversation where nobody keeps score?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, and turned off the TV. We talked for almost 2 hours, about the small betrayals that don't make any headlines, the canceled plans that nobody admits were canceled on purpose, the jokes that land like jabs, the way it's easier to control someone than to actually be present with them because presence asks more of you. She said she'd learned to negotiate because negotiating felt safer than asking. I told her I'd learned to appease because appeasing felt safer than leaving. We were both honest enough to hear how sad that sounded out loud. We didn't touch. We just sat with our hands flat on our own knees and let the words be the only thing in the room. By Friday, she asked me to come with her to a counseling session she'd scheduled. "Someone practical," she said. "Someone who assigns homework." "One condition," I said. "What?" "No performance in the room. No performance at home." "Deal," she said. The therapist, a straightforward woman named Dr. Patton, who had a whiteboard and no patience for circular reasoning, asked us each to list our non-negotiables. Then, she asked us to prove we could honor each other's without needing to be policed. That homework was either going to be the bridge or the goodbye. We did the work for 3 weeks. Connie apologized once, without any qualifications attached. I accepted it without turning it into a case study. I planned a Saturday breakfast, nothing elaborate, just eggs and good coffee. And she showed up for it without bringing the past into the room. She planned a dinner and didn't make it a test. In the evenings, we started simple. Conversation. Contact without agenda. There's a difference between someone meeting you and someone rewarding you. It felt like meeting. It also felt fragile, like something you had to be careful with. My buddy Pete, the quiet one from the old warehouse crew, mentioned singletune.com over coffee one Friday morning. His sister had used it after her second divorce and said it was the first time she'd ever felt like a dating app was actually asking the right questions. She said, before you even see a picture, you have to answer all these questions about what you've been through, what you believe in, what you actually want, Pete said, wrapping his hands around his mug. She met a guy through it and they've been together 2 years. Says he's the most honest person she's ever been with. I thought about that on the drive back to the shop, about what it would mean to answer those questions honestly, to know yourself well enough to put it into words before you ever tried to connect with someone else. I wasn't using the app. I was trying to rebuild something with Connie, and that was its own kind of work. But there was something in what Pete described that felt important. The idea that you had to do the honest accounting first. Know what you'd been through. Know what you actually needed before you could find someone who matched it. I'd spent years not doing that accounting, just reacting, just adjusting, just trying to keep the temperature comfortable. I wasn't doing that anymore. The midpoint reality check arrived on a Thursday, the way those things always do. Unscheduled, inconvenient, clarifying. Gail texted Connie a message about getting the old Connie back. Some girls' night designed to remind her who she was before all this. Connie showed me the message. You should go if you want, I said. She looked at my face the way she used to, searching for the tell that meant I was bothered. She didn't find it. I don't think I want to, she said. She replied to the group that she was working on some things and wasn't up for a big night out. Put the phone face up on the counter when she was done, which I noticed, which I think she meant me to notice. Maybe it meant something. Maybe it was another move. I was done trying to decode everything. I just watched and let time tell the truth. On Sunday, we sat in the car outside the grocery store and faced the thing I'd been living alongside like a question mark for months. Do you want this marriage? I asked. Not the version where I'm something you manage. The actual thing. She didn't look away. I want the marriage, she said, and I'm willing to feel stupid learning how to do it right. That might be the most honest sentence I'd ever heard her say. In the car, in the kitchen, anywhere. I believed it enough to try. Trying didn't mean I dismantled my exit. I kept my non-negotiables where I could see them, kept my own calendar, kept the gym time, kept Wednesday lunches with Hank. 2 months later, I realized I'd stopped checking the emotional weather before deciding whether I was allowed to be in a good mood. That was new. That was significant. We hiked the Ridge Trail on a Saturday and didn't keep score about who picked the route. We had an argument about a floor lamp she wanted to put in the living room, and we solved it in about 20 minutes and moved on. She grabbed my hand crossing a parking lot because the light changed, and she didn't want to get separated, and it was just a hand, just a moment, and it was enough. I don't romanticize it. We're not the couple posting golden hour photos with captions about doing the work. We're two people who learned how to say no without destroying yes in the process. That's better than romantic. That's sustainable. There's an alternate version of this story where Connie chose her crowd over the table, where the lever won because it was easier. In that version, I pack a bag and leave quietly. Forward my mail, change my passwords. Not out of spite, out of alignment. I know that version because I kept it real the whole time. Kept an apartment search open in my browser. Made a mental list of the tools I'd take. Kept my head clear enough to go if respect didn't show up. Keeping the option real made me honest. I think it made her honest, too. One evening, a few months after the first real conversation, we ran into Marianne Tully walking her dog around the block. She looked at us the way she looks at everything, straight on, no filter, and smiled. Whatever you're doing, she said, keep doing it. Connie laughed. The small kind of laugh that means thank you without needing a speech. We walked home with grocery bags and nothing heroic in them. At the door, Connie paused with her key in the lock. You know you could have just left, right? She said, and at any point. I did leave, I said. The version of me that was running on empty left. That's why I could stay. She thought about that for a second. Then she opened the door. I've thought a lot about what I'd say to a man in the position I was in a year ago. Standing in his kitchen in his work jacket, hand on the refrigerator, hearing something that rearranges the room around him. Here's what I know. The lever she thought controlled me is scrap metal now. What replaced it is simpler and harder and better. Two people who show up without a price tag, who say what they mean and mean what they say, and don't use love as a bargaining position. If that ever changes, if the old game tries to come back with a fresh coat of paint, I won't negotiate with it. I won't stage an intervention or beg for basic decency. I'll wish her well, hand her what's hers, and walk out with my name and my peace and my Wednesday lunches with Hank. Because staying is a choice, not a sentence. And respect is not negotiable.